he is.
Hi.
I'm liking this, dude. I'm
Thanks.
liking it. It's
Yeah.
coming back.
Ah.
Coming back.
I could shave it and it would be back tomorrow night. It's fine.
Oh, you're one of those guys. I've got to like
Yeah.
carefully groom mine for months to get it to even look this scraggly. So, um, well, we've got our panel here. We have got we'll go around the board. We have got Alicia Wilder here from the Ex-Wife podcast. We have got Jordan here from the X-Men 101 podcast, and we have Dylan here from both the House of X podcast and the To Me My X-Men podcast. So we're all podcasters, so that's a lot of fun. Hey, Adrian's here. Fantastic. Good. You come up in this thing.
Nightcrawler.
Yeah. So
Nightcrawler is in the chat.
he is in the chat, and Sean Gecka is in the chat as well. So we're off to a roaring start, but we have got a lot to unpack in this episode. I can't remember the last time in my life that I watched an episode where it was just so much jaw on the floor. It
Yeah.
was, but we're gonna unpack it. We're here for you guys. I hope your eyes aren't as red as they were Wednesday night. I have since watched this episode 4 times. I have teared up every single time. And I'm a tough man. I'm a tough dude. I don't cry at nothing. But let me tell you, this was something else. So we're going to get started on this thing. Like right off the bat, we've got the intro, and one of the things that we have talked about, and several people have talked about, every single intro has slight changes to it. For example, in this one, we did not have Storm in the intro because the writers are like, "You're not on the team anymore. You're not a mutant. Get out of here." That probably wasn't their attitude, but but we did. I think the most notable one about this is we have a shot in there of Cable and Apocalypse, which to me has a lot of foreshadowing. I feel like they just don't throw stuff in there just for filler. Like there's reasons behind these things. But so as we move past, because I don't want to spend a ton of time dwelling on it, because we have a lot to cover in this episode. This episode begins with Trish Tilby at the X Mansion interviewing, kind of doing an expose on Xavier's, and so we get the scene there with Beast, and the scene also there with Jubilee where she references vampire dinosaurs, which is hysterical in and of itself. And that I just kind of like between the intro and between like opening up there with Trish sort of like doing this expose. What were your guys' thoughts on it? We'll go around the horn and start with Alicia on this one.
I just think like right off the bat, this episode was digging deeper. Like it was setting us up like we're having intimate conversations, like we're breaking barriers immediately with the beginning of the episode. We're trying to like dig into the personal lives of these people. And I mean, it's interesting to just see characters like coming back and see characters like if you read the comic, the X-Men 97 comic this week, like Trish is right at the beginning of the comic also. So it's interesting to kind of see those parallels of how they pulled together. But, I think it gave like almost an ominous vibe just by the sound score in itself. So it sort of set you up to be like, oh, what are we doing today?
Mm-hmm. Jordan, what do you think?
So I came in uh, with X-Men with an animated series. So I got that vibe right away with humans versus mutants with the interviews. And I also come from the fashion perspective. So the orange interview suit really struck a chord with me. It was more on the salmon side. So I'm like, oh, this feels very 80s. And I had no expectation of what this episode was going to be. As someone who is kind of new digging deep into what X-Men is, I know that something bad always happens, and I know about Genosha, but I didn't know it was going to go this far into Genosha.
Mm-hmm. Dylan, what you got?
Being a comic fan, seeing Trish talking to Beast was fun. It's nice that you're getting like it's not just some random reporter. It's a reporter who's been in comics, not just the 97 comic. So that's fun, and we got to see Beast blush.
Yeah.
So that's also fun.
Didn't know it's possible.
But yeah,
blue blushes.
Whenever like I've watched a lot of TV in my life, TV's my best friend. A lot of times, if you're in any type of TV show where there's like all of a sudden an expose, like something important, whether it's good, bad, or in between, is about to happen.
That's exactly why I don't trust journalists. They're always at the site where something bad happens every time. I
Yeah.
swear. I never would have even if you would have asked me right now what color her blazer was, I would have had no idea. Like,
It was salmon.
salmon,
Yeah.
it's good on sushi. Yeah. Yeah, and one of the neat little things that they added to this that I thought was great, like the original X-Men the animated series, of course, was in standard format. Like today, everything's in widescreen,
Mhm.
and X-Men '97 is in widescreen. Except when they're doing the shots from the camera for those exposés, it's back in standard format because this is supposed to be in 1997. I thought that was a great little touch. I picked up on that. We started getting into the meat of this episode when Gambit, Magneto, and Rogue are on the flight to Genosha, and of course they're being smarmy. They're having a salmon measuring contest, if you will. We'll just go with that. And Rogue's like, y'all need to just calm down. And so we get this cool thing where they like fly in, and we like first get into, and this is I think really deliberate. Like our first view of Genosha is paradise. It's this beautiful island. All this stuff is going on. There's a giant statue of Magneto. There's a giant statue of Xavier, which I know Alicia wants in front of her house. It is fantastic. And so, of course, they land, and Madeline Pryor, who we now learn has joined, is now is kind of like hanging out on Genosha and part of the ruling there. Cooper is there, another person I don't trust because she's always there when something bad happens. I'm going to be honest. So then guess who shows up? Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Our man Kurt Wagner is here and is just so happy, and it was just so great to see him. I'll just like cut it off there, and we'll see what everybody's thoughts were. Dylan, we'll start with you this time.
It was very shocking to see Madeline so quickly. I thought we were like, okay, she's gone. We'll see you season 2, season 3. Like, it's been one episode. Like, you're already back. For gigantic animated series fans, I thought when we first saw her for a split second, I thought it was the character Amelia Vogt, who has always been a part of like Magneto and the Acolytes. I thought it was her, but nope, it's Madeline. So that was fun, and everybody loves Nightcrawler. So like that, you're just like, oh my god, yay! But like, if you go back and think after you finish the episode, you're like, they were really they played with all of our emotions because they made you very, very happy with Nightcrawler.
Mm-hmm.
And shout out to Adrian if you're still in the chat. You did amazing.
Yes.
Welcome back.
And it was just great hearing your voice again, Adrian. Like I've got so much to say about that. As a quick side note, I'm also a humongous Assassin's Creed fan. He did the voice of Haytham Kenway in Assassin's Creed 3. And also, trivia, he played Jean Grey's father in X-Men The Last Stand, in that scene there at the beginning. So, little nugget out there if y'all didn't know that. Okay, anyway, I'm so sorry. Jordan, how about you?
So, on X-Men 101 podcast, we just did an interview with Gilbert and Elaine A.M. Diaz on Nightcrawler. And the things I learned about Nightcrawler, I understand that. Why am I nervous talking about Nightcrawler right now? Like, I'm excited. I think he's like a goblin prince too, or something like that. I didn't know how much charm the character has until I saw him, I guess, fully realized in this episode. I only remember Kurt from the movies, which we don't really talk about, and also the animated series where they made the first animated series where they made him so sad, just so sad. And just in the few years that I've gotten back into X-Men, and especially at the Uncanny Experience, when I had an experience of hanging out with some of the cosplayers and hearing the backstories about him, and I just saw someone commented about sea bass. I'm not gonna go there, but I understand the charm.
These things always go off the rails. I don't know how this happens. It's probably I'll take the blame
It's
though.
you.
All right.
It's always you.
I
Whenever the
know.
women are talking to you, it's you.
I but I never once brought up Gambit Cream. I never once called him a whole snack. I never once called Magneto daddy vibes. These words have not come out my mouth until now. So anyway, Alicia, what do you got?
Well, just in the bittersweet moments of the ending of Krakoa, seeing Genosha the way that they depicted it definitely gave me like Krakoa vibes. And I don't have as much connection to the Genosha story. Like I've only learned bits about it. I haven't actually read it. So like I'm sure there are obvious Genosha similarities, but for a Krakoan comic reader, I was just like, oh my God, it's like we're getting a little nugget of Krakoa. So that was really exciting to see and just to like have this warm, like just welcoming, chipper vibe. Um, Madeline, Madeline being when they come off the plane was a little shocking. I agree, Dylan. I did not expect to see her so quickly, and then I was like partially conflicted with her saying like when she left the mansion, I'm gonna go like make my own life, and then she's like, "Well, I'm on the council because you guys had an extra gene." So and I'm like, "No, separate yourself from Jean. You are your own woman." But I'm just excited to see how she weaves into the story going forward because, like Dylan, I thought that, you know, we got her and then she would come back for something else. I didn't think she'd be so in it of the main story. And then Nightcrawler, like Nightcrawler is just a bundle of joy. And the way, first of all, I always talk about the animation when I talk about this show and the way that he teleports from place to place and just the imagery of that swirl of teleportation and the bamf, it's so beautifully done that I could just watch him like bounce around the screen nonstop. But just the like absolute joy that Rogue feels when she sees him, like that's the same joy we all felt when we saw him. It's just like, ooh, okay, yeah, I feel good. Nightcrawler's here.
Yeah, it kind of like had the vibe of like when we're all at a con and haven't seen each other forever. And
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
oh my God, it's you.
Yeah.
And then
That
suddenly they're gone. Like, where did
Yeah.
they
Where did
go?
they
Get a selfie.
We're like,
yeah,
well, I saw them for 5 seconds. I guess I'll see them next year.
right,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. From now until then, it's just Instagram DMs. That's all there is to it. So you know, after that, we cut back to the mansion where now Scott Summers is being interviewed, and I thought this was interesting how at the very beginning he's doing his best to be like the PR and like, oh well, if we learned one thing at Xavier's, and you see this like slowly him getting more and more annoyed and irritated, which was like first of all just fantastic depth to his character, which we didn't really see in the original series, if I'm going to be honest. So that was absolutely fantastic to see, and then we cut to Jean Grey, who's just like going Moses on the lake outside the mansion, and just like she went from like not really knowing how to use her powers to all of a sudden like committing acts of God, which was amazing. And Logan rolls up as he always does when Jean's dealing with stuff, and Jean's wrestling with the memories, that sort of thing. And then we have the kiss, which I was really shocked they threw that in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
And Logan himself is instantly like he didn't like embellish it for a second, then push her off. Like instantly, he's like, "Bro," and he kind of says like, "Hey, you're with Scott. Those are the rules. We can't do this." Um, I appreciate Logan for having some self-respect. He's not going to be her comfortable side piece while she figures her crap out.
Mm-hmm.
Good to you. Men in the show are always taking the high road. I love that. Thank God for once. And then we cut back to Scott being interviewed, and he sort of like finally snaps on the reporter and is just like, I can't do this, da 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 da, all that stuff. So encapsulating all of that, Dylan, we will start with you, my man.
Okay. Yeah, Cyclops in X-Men 97 has been way better than Cyclops has ever been anywhere else, whether it be animated, movie, or even comics for the most part.
Yeah.
It was, fun to see him be the Boy Scout and everything, but then once they start prying and then reminding him of his child that he just gave up, it was fun to watch him snap. And Like I saw people online almost, or they said that it kind of looked like he almost said the F word, which in comics they call humans flat scans. Like that was fun.
Mm.
Yeah, like this is what happens in interviews when they keep pushing.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jean and Wolverine, they 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 are both characters that I have not really cared too much about in my life, but I do love soap operas, and I really love the huge soap opera-ness of this. And then
Yeah.
just to like kind of throw in like comics, because I'm a huge comic fan. When it comes to Krakoa, like a year or a year and a half ago, they just did like an X-Men the animated series alternate universe of Krakoa. And so it was like House of 92. Yeah. And so it was neat that they did the Krakoan story in the 92 kind of era. So it's fun to see things like the rest of this episode. And Jean and Wolverine, because these happened in like the 2000s during the E for Extinction and things like that. So it's neat to see that happen.
Mm-hmm.
Alicia, how about you?
Oh, okay. So I agree about the way that Cyclops is portrayed and just it being a really, it's the first time I am ever feeling like I can empathize with Cyclops as a character. And there are moments later on that it feels more like tangible, but in particular when he's like being pushed in the interview, you know, there's a moment where Trish is asking questions and she says like, oh, and the next chapter, like parenthood, and he says, we don't have a child. And then the way that she presses it and twists and is like, you know, like, I'm just trying to make you seem human. Like, why are you lying? And it's like, well, if you really cared about the image that you're helping me portray, if I said, like, we don't have a kid, you wouldn't be pushing me on that right now because you don't know what happened. Like, there, anything could have happened to that baby. Like, there could be birth records, but the baby could have died. Like, you know what I mean? So I was just very, like, on Scott's side and in that moment of him escalating to the place where he did, and you could sense his like discomfort the entire time too, of like, I don't want to say anything that's going to make these people uncomfortable, because even when they're like, oh, your glasses are affecting the lights, like, can you take them off? And the way he hesitates and is almost apologetic by saying like, oh, I can't take them off, you know, like, I'm sorry. He doesn't even say maybe he does say I'm sorry, but like this like he's walking on eggshells, and then he explodes and he's like, you're trying to like prove that I'm a person. I am a person, but my life is nothing like your life. So if you really want to, you know, show something, show how my life is nothing like everyone else's life, but I'm a good person, you know? And I just like, I was really there for Scott in that moment. I was completely blindsided by Jean kissing Logan, and I was just like, Jean, what? Like, she was just very desperately, I think, she needed some love in that moment. She was feeling really hopeless and helpless, and was just like, Scott doesn't want me, so maybe Logan will want me, because, you know, just a couple episodes ago, I looked deep into his mind and saw how much I'm into him. Deeper. Yeah, deep into it. And, you know, but then I was like, ooh, Scott. So I was really proud of Logan in that moment, honestly. I was like, good job, man. You said no. You said, I'm not getting involved in this nonsense, which could have turned out differently.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, it was great to see that they're human. They're mutants, they're super, but they're humans. They have feelings. The writing is amazing in this one, because in the original series and in the movies, you see glimpses of it, but this is the time where I think someone kind of touched on it where, I was going to say Emma Frost. Michelle said this in our podcast. Cyclops is such a Boy Scout. And what happens when goody two-shoes boys get so wound up, eventually they snap and they crack. And that's what I saw happen in this episode is he showed it's not a chink in the armor. It's a full on a dent, a big dent, a big crack. And then the relationship between Logan and um, uh, Jean Grey. I keep thinking of a loyal dog, a loyal pet, where he senses when she's sad. So I think that's why he keeps coming up to her, but
Mm.
knows that, he's not the alpha in the house. It's still Cyclops, even though Cyclops is now showing maybe he just claims to be alpha when he's actually beta. At least that's where my brain is at.
Well, I will say I feel like Wolverine is such an alpha he doesn't even know what that word means.
Oh,
But
that's
anyway.
a good one. Okay.
I wanted to mention something real quick, because we all know who like wrote a lot of these episodes. I think for some people, you may not necessarily get it, but some people like Jordan and I might get it, or even Jordan more so. That like when you're different in the world, but maybe not different too much, you do always want to. A lot of times, you're almost apologetic to make other people be comfortable first,
Yeah.
and for Cyclops
Yes.
to be that way with the glasses, it was like, what can I do to make my weirdness not be
Yeah.
a hindrance for?
Weird.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then once you like keep pushing and keep pushing, then you're like, I have been pushed too far. So it's just, I know a lot of people might not think about that, but it's just something that I know some of us think about when we see it,
Mhm.
because I have apologized for being different than others before. So like that whole glasses part, I was like, don't apologize.
Well, especially since the cameraman initially says it like, I don't want to say smarmy, but sort of like, yeah, we're getting a reflection off your glasses. You got to take them off. Like, is completely
Yes.
like sort of callous on the way he says it, even to
Like,
begin with.
Yeah.
have you ever seen Cyclops without something covering his eyes?
Yeah.
Like, have a little bit of self-awareness when you're asking that question.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so after this, we cut to the council where we first meet the council here on. I almost said Krakoa, but here on Genosha, and it definitely has some interesting members. Straight cis
Mhm.
white cameraman. Thank you, Sean. You said it, bro. But so right off the bat, we have Banshee. I will not tolerate any Banshee hate. That man is awesome. I'm so glad he's there. Briefly, Maura McTaggart, because like I guess Banshee had a +1. Of course, we have what was that? but
I
uh,
hate that look because I'm pretty sure Moira was more invited and Banshee was more like her +1. I know she's a human in this situation, but I'm pretty sure he was her +1.
Dylan, he said no Banshee
yes,
hate.
potato,
She's
whatever.
she's the ally. She's the invited ally, and she knew her place.
Yeah,
So
and
an
she hid in the
ally.
trunk on the jet.
Yeah, until
Fun.
much later when she stabbed Jean in the heart, but that's something else.
Worlds are colliding. Worlds are colliding. So okay, we got Banshee, we got Mora, Callisto, Sebastian Shaw. We
Yeah.
get to see Emma, the Queen, who should be running this thing, but that's just me. Um, and so there's sort of this discussion that like hey Magneto, like Eric, we kind of want you to run this thing. And I even love how Emma refers to it like basically we need a PR guy at the head of this thing. We need somebody that and I don't know like if it was meant to be subtle, but they're basically sort of saying we don't want you to lead because we think you are the best leader in all of mutant. Just like right now you're like at the top of everyone's humans like favorite mutant list and mutants. So we kind of want you to do this. And he sort of says, I'll do it, but under one condition: if I can have a queen. Okay. So we'll just start there. Alicia, what'd you think?
Oh, Emma, get it, Emma Frost. I I like was so excited because I think there was was there an Emma clip in the opening or something? I don't know, but I saw that and I was like, Emma, it's happening. Oh my God, she's here. And just like everything about her, like the sly remarks, the way she swivels in her chair, like just from the moment she's there to the moment like she's everything she says to everyone, and like her diss to Moira, and just I just love seeing. I agree. She should run the whole thing. And that's what she was saying to Magneto. She was like, "You're not actually in charge, though. Like, you're pretty
Mhm.
for us to flaunt and say, look at this, Magneto is here, but you are not actually running things. So just so you know, I'm Emma Frost." Um, and yeah, the queen of it all is, it's difficult because I've had this turmoil about Rogue and Magneto, but there's some things in this episode that really ended that for me. I was like, oh, that was a fun little fantasy in my head. I'm over it. Like halfway through the episode, I was done with it. I was. It's a big ask, man. Like you're gonna ask her to leave everything, like not just leave Remy, but leave the X-Men to rule Genosha with you. I don't. Seems a little selfish.
Jordan, how about you?
There was a time in my life when I really went for the older guys. So I understand. Older men with power and authority. Um, yeah, there was uh, that chemistry between the two of them that I understood, but also how they mix the comic book storyline with this episode of how they're able to touch, which is my understanding different in the comic, a little different in the comic books. I don't know, but her in that Savage Land outfit and Magneto on that throne, that little, clip right there, I was like, oh, wow, to be in the wild jungle with a powerful man. Yes, yes. But when we look at the scene where he was monologuing about, I don't think I'm the right person to blah blah blah. I think they already said that, Magneto. You're not the person. But he's still monologuing, I don't think I'm the best suited emotionally, whatever. So in a way he's kind of delusional with his power and the the hero complex. But um I'm jumping around because I just saw someone, is it your dress?
Yeah.
The line, and this is later, but the line from Emma Frost to, I was going to say Demand a Martini, but Dr. Cooper, um, that is the Emma Frost that I have gotten to know in the comic books, that I didn't get to know in the original animated series. So much appreciation to this episode. It really is a soap opera.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody know Soap Dish, that movie with Sally Field? Am I too old to? It's that. It's that. It's giving Soap Dish.
Oh man.
That was it.
Okay. Yes, before I go to Dylan here, this episode had so much greatness packed into it to the point where I almost feel bad because really great things get forgotten
Yeah.
because it was overshadowed by other great things. But yes, the line where Cooper comes in and says, "We need to talk," and Emma says, "Is it about your
It's
dress?"
about your dress.
That's like peak Emma. Like, I'm sorry, I love that so much.
Or
I'm
when she
sorry.
says, like, when she goes, mind wander indeed, like, and I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, Emma, no shame that she was watching that whole
Oh yeah.
thing. She was
Yes,
buying
and
on that whole thing.
we're gonna get into that. I've got that on my list. But Dylan, what you got?
I, I will
No
talk
Banshee
about.
hate.
I'll talk about the character that no one's talking about, and once again, bringing up comics. So sorry for people that aren't
No,
reading the comics.
don't
Uh,
apologize, remember? Don't apologize.
um, I was very happy to see Callisto,
Mm-hmm.
and for a comic
Yes.
book character, when the House of X, Dawn of X era all started, and we got to meet the council there. I have been yelling ever since then. I'm like, why is Callisto not a member of the council? She ran her entire own nation in the sewers, and yet none of you are going to put her in charge. What is wrong with you? This makes no sense. So as soon as we cut to there and we realized that that was the council, and I saw her, and I don't even think she said anything. I was like, yes, Callisto, this makes sense. Thank you. She doesn't have to talk because it's just perfect. So I was very happy to see Callisto. And I'm also realizing that sometimes when we talk about characters, if any of us have cosplayed them, we are very protective of them. And I started saying this, I'm like,
Really, Dylan?
cosplay them.
I wonder what that's about.
But, yeah, and I love Emma. You all talked about the amazing Emma-ness, and Banshee's pretty.
She's pretty.
We'll take it.
Also, side note, the person that voiced Banshee in this episode also voiced Peach, and also voiced Mojo, and also was Ferb on Phineas and Ferb.
Wow.
Anyway,
That's love it.
God.
Dropping resumes. Wow. Okay. So here's where like I feel like things like as if the show doesn't occasionally get convoluted, but we cut back to the mansion where Scott and Jean are having a conversation, and of course you've been running under this prior notion that they weren't really speaking. There was tension between the two, and they're kind of having this like touching moment. Sean Bean of X-Men '97. Bro.
oh my gosh.
How long have you had that one in the chamber? That's excellent. But so we think Scott and Jean are having this moment, and then all of a sudden, like, the walls fly apart, and actual Jean is there, and you realize Scott was telepathically communicating with Madeline. So this is where we have the whole, like, all of a sudden Madeline, like, sits up on the council and says, "I'm sorry, my mind wandered," and Emma says that, mind wandered.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the meme of her, like, sitting there, like, and the meme says, like, Emma watching all of this psychically go on between Scott, Jean, and Madeline, and she's like, this is pure cinema. Like, to her, this has just got to be like, she's watching Soap Dish.
Yes.
100% she is. Now, the thing is that, you know, and I just want to say, so at one point in time, Jean begins to storm away past the room where Tilby is filming all this stuff, and the cameraman turns around. The cameraman is modeled after Sean Gecka, the producer. And since so many people have confused me and him, I'm just telling people I was in the episode. Like, that's just what I'm going to run with. We've talked about showing up to Uncanny, like, cosplaying as Multiple Man or something, because it would be hysterical. But back to the lecture at hand. So they have this whole argument between Scott and Jean, and I really feel like I understand there's a lot of emotion. I understand Jean's going through a lot, but it was sort of like you guys said earlier about Scott's beginning to snap. Like, if you just think about everything he has been through emotionally since the first season, the fact that he is even remotely holding it together right now is insane. I mean, talking about, like, finding out, like, the woman that you've been with is actually a clone. Like, of course you're going to be confused. Like, of course you're going to love both of them. You had a son. The son got sick. The son got sent to the future. He's dealing with his own abandonment issues. Like, how this guy hasn't just lasered everything to the ground is beyond me. And then, of course, this scene ends with Jean, like, getting hit with, like, a psychic blast. And she kind of, like, drops to her knees. And we'll cut it off there. This round, we will start with Jordan. What did you think about all that?
Well, he is in the role of leader because he has shown strength. But it looks like in this episode, it's the inner fortitude, the emotional fortitude that he doesn't really have a handle on. He has the skills to fight. He has the optic blast, the power. But when it comes to all the things that he's handling, suddenly it feels like, woe is me. Because he's not the one who got cloned. He's not the one who pushed a 9-pound baby out his hoo-ha. He's not the one who has been mind controlled by this being. He's not the one who has been traveling the universe in another form and always fainting. So for me, it's like I can't feel bad for Cyclops. He's not the victim here. He's not. It's Madeline and Jean. They're the victims. But am I wrong? Am I too much of a feminist?
Perspective that Jordan brings, because it's very like, outside of comic knowledge, but like sounds very much like a shrink. But then she'll also be like, but then also that salmon top that they were wearing.
Yeah.
Jordan's like vision of the show.
Yes.
All over the place. I can't feel bad for him. I understand why a cis heterosexual white man who's tightly wound up will eventually crack. I understand that. But no, I don't feel bad for him.
Okay. Well, before I move on to that, I will say not necessarily feel bad for him, but Gene is mad at him, and from his perspective, it's sort of like, what do you want me to do, honey? Like, what do you want from me? Like,
I want you
there's
to choose.
yeah, there's no high road, there's no low road. I'm just F4 away
No.
from Sunday on this whole thing. Damned if I do, damned if I don't.
Yes, he's effed either way.
Mm-hmm.
But then again, he effed around. So bye. Bye, everyone.
I love you.
Go through that gate that's behind you.
All right. So to follow all that up, Alicia.
Okay. So I have a lot of thoughts, and I will keep them short because we have a lot to talk about still. But one, Jean, you literally just walked away from kissing Logan. So like, I know that you don't know how long this has been going on, and like your feelings of self-doubt are the reason that you kiss Logan, but you just kiss Logan and you actually kiss him, and you didn't kiss him in your mind. So pump the brakes a little tiny bit, Jean, just a little. I also feel like in the comics, the way that the Madeline situation works out is he knows Jean is dead, and then sees Madeline, falls in love with her, whatever, finds out she's a clone later on. Before he even knows she's a clone, leaves her to be back with Jean. And it's very upsetting to me the way he doesn't take a lot of time to acknowledge the history of their relationship and what he and Madeline had. Here, the way that this is set up, in that he didn't even know that there was a switch ever happened. There was no break in the storyline for him. It was always Jean. So I'm really happy actually to see the way that he's struggling. Not that I want to see someone struggle, but it makes his relationship with Madeline that much more valid, because he actually still feels connected to it. And it was like, I actually like cheered him on when he said to her, like, I love you both. Like, what am I supposed to do? Because I can understand everyone's perspective, right? You understand Madeline being upset that she thought she was the real Jean. She's being kicked out. Jean is like, but I, fought the cosmos like internally to be here with you. But he's also like, but I thought she was you the entire time. So there's still that version of you that I'm still in love with. So it was nice for me to like, I'm afraid to say this. I know that my husband is listening. I think that the animated series is turning the tides on Scott Summers for me, and I'm scared to admit that, but I actually felt for him in a way that I've never felt for him before, and that this moment was the thing that did it. Because I respected this position he was in. Before, I didn't respect him for leaving Madeline.
Mm-hmm. Dylan?
Well, now I want to know if Justin and Alicia are going to stay together.
I just want to say, as a side note before I get to you, Dylan, like, Maddie, Jean, Scott, I'm going to blow your mind when I tell you to go Google polyamory. It will fix all your problems. Yeah. Anyway.
I mean, especially when the other person is you.
Yeah, right. Like, okay. Like
cheating. It's literally you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know you're going to get along. You both like the same hair care products, the same kind of cars,
You'll get some.
obviously the same kind of
You'll get
dudes.
some days off.
Yes.
Like there's a whole nother year anyway.
He actually says, like, Sinister took a piece of me and you loved it. It's like, yes, because it's a piece of you, Gene. Dylan, go.
It was a really good looking piece of you. So,
I feel like now I'm becoming the well in relation to comics side, but in relation to comics side,
Need it. We need it.
it seems like what was happening around the new X-Men E for Extinction Jean dying era, or right before she died. Scott, Emma, Jean was a triangle, so now it's Scott, Maddie, Jean, and so it's like the adaptation of that, and it's fun because Emma, like, apparently is also still there, but
Yeah.
afar. So I love that, and yeah, Jean, you're a hypocrite. You just made out with Wolverine. Calm down. He
Chill.
and I love it because just saw him be very apologetic to like the humans or whatever, and like Jean. And anytime, like most of the time, when you see a couple fight on television, whether it's animated or not, usually the wife does get the last word, and like Jean got the last word and started to walk away, and he's like, "No, B word. Do you actually love me, or do you just love the thought of us together?" And like she didn't answer, and I was like, "Aha!" So
yeah, yes,
that's all.
yeah, Scott was not tolerating her shit at all. He was just like, no, okay, I tried playing your dance, but hear me out on this one.
yeah.
So this is where things, if things weren't deep at this point, it keeps getting deeper. Like the Titanic keeps sinking emotionally on this entire episode, because this is where we get this whole scene where Rogue comes to Remy LeBeau, and as he's getting ready for the gala, and sort of says, "Hey, you want to sit down for this?" And she, recounts the whole history with Magneto, who definitely had this like schoolgirl freshman in college in love with the professor vibe going on. Oh, just paint me while I, oh my god, like what is happening? Like what is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, we have the thing, and I thought it was so brilliantly framed. The way as she's telling this whole thing about how Eric has asked her to be the Queen of Genosha, and Rogue doesn't see it, but from the camera angle, as Gambit's sitting there playing with cards, he holds up a Queen of Hearts and asks her, like, "So are you going to take his offer?" And she basically says yes, and he flicks it in the fire. Like to him, this was like, this was your last opportunity. I've been doing your dance for years now. This is where you're going to tell me what's up. And then, like, I still don't know how I 100% feel about this, because Rogue drops two absolutely brutal lines on him, where she says, your heart beats for me, but I can't feel it, and you light up everything you touch except for me. To anybody who's ever been friend zoned, which would be like the title of my autobiography in my teens and 20s, this is brutal. Like, this just feels like absolutely gut wrenching. I mean, of all the ways to break up with somebody, somebody who knows that they can't touch you and yet still loves you, still follows you, is still always trying to be there for you. I thought it was especially harsh. Dylan, agree or disagree?
I agree. It was horrible. Yeah. I mean, as you were saying it, I was thinking about like one of the first times I like had a boyfriend, and I was very talkative to them, but I had just entered the like gay world of being 21 and going to bars and everything, and this person was older because, like Jordan, I love older men.
Yes.
But this person was also a drag queen, so they talked a lot, and everyone knew them, they knew everyone, and I was very quiet. And it was just like, after a while, they broke up with me because they were like, well, you just don't fit it. And I was like, so like thinking about this, I'm like, oh, yeah, I feel that, Remy.
Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, I feel it too, from Gambit's perspective. speaking of dating, there was a time when I was dating, you know what? He's not watching this. I was dating a minister, openly knowing that I am trans.
I know.
But but no one, he didn't want anyone to know that he and I worked together until like 6 years after. I just asked, what are we doing? And he said, I'm not the marrying kind. So I understand what I know after 6 years without a title. Come on. So that's what I felt for Gambit. It's like he just wants to love her. He just wants to touch her even if he knows that he died. That's how much he just wanted to be with her, and for her to uh, to go after someone that much older than her. It's like, why was he trying to keep his abs all together when she's gonna go for an older man anyway? But who knows? Maybe he has abs under that suit too. But you get my point, that it's, after that long time of yearning for someone, and then just one day, it's like, not you. It's
Mm-hmm.
not you.
Yeah. Alicia?
Okay, well, the thing is, I just don't believe Rogue. Like, I feel her in that moment, like saying these things out loud because she's telling herself that this is how it has to be, because she's hyper fixated on the idea that the physical touch is what she needs. And like, she can't see outside of that in that moment. And she's telling herself, like, this is how it has to be. And I think that also in that moment, you can really, like, in this entire episode, Lenore, like, speaks to my soul. She's amazing. And what I feel from Rogue in this moment is that she's also been handed this, like, you need to be the leader of this nation, Rogue. Like, Magneto puts this weight of this decision on her. So her talking to Remy has so much more weight than just, this is the end of our relationship. It's like, I have to do this other thing. And so to do this other thing, she's like white fanging him. She's go on now, get, like, that's what she's doing. And so I feel like she's saying what she's saying to hurt him so that he'll, like, run away. And he doesn't. He just kisses her on the hand and says, like, okay, like, I know, like, she's like, oh, Gambit always knows the odds or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I do. But for now, like, we'll just be friends, because he knows that they're meant to be together. And she's trying to push him away because she feels like this other thing is what she has to have. And she has the weight of this decision of leading on her. And she feels like that's why she's an X-Men, right? So, like, do you choose your duty, or do you choose to fight for this love? Like, you have to make a decision. And I think that's what she's like forcing herself to believe these things, and trying to push Remy away, and like make him, like, because she gets on her knees and is crying at him. And I think that if he really didn't light her up, she wouldn't be as torn up about it, as she is.
Yeah, because if she didn't feel that way, she'd have just ghosted him.
Yeah, she didn't even have to tell him. Like, they were never, it wasn't official. It wasn't a thing. Like, he even said, we've gone all this time without, like, calling it anything. I've just been here because you don't want to commit. So I just feel like she didn't really mean what she said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Before we move on to the next section, show of hands, who caught the Watcher first watch
Oh,
through?
not the first watch.
Just me and Dylan?
I did, but I was also a little terrified because I was a crazy person and I stayed up until 2 a.m. in zone to watch it because I need to watch it. And then as I was watching it, I was like, was that like a reflection of someone behind me? I have all the lights off. There should not be anyone behind me.
I heard you tell that story on your podcast, and I was dying laughing as I was driving. I'm like, yeah.
I was like, what here?
Uh-huh.
Let me watch the episode, then you tell me.
So as we move on to the next part of the episode, we have the gala. The gala's happening. There's this exchange between Madeline and Gambit sitting at the bar, and this is where Cooper walks up and says, "Assemble the council. We need to talk." And Emma says, "Is it about your dress?" And the
What's
other,
wrong, Dr. Cooper?
right?
Is it your
The
dress?
other, yeah, yeah. Emma just destroyed a UN ambassador, like just
She did.
like she got wrecked
Wait,
worse than Genosha in that
so
comment.
is it her though? Because I read somewhere that somebody said, wait, am I ruining it? That she smelled familiar.
That,
Somebody said,
that's
oh,
my theory.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's my theory too.
Yeah.
And I had a long talk with Sean Gecka about it last night. He wouldn't deny or confirm it. So
Okay.
he's keep guarding it close to the chest, and I respect him for it. But yeah, one of the other fantastic lines in this whole episode is when Cooper says that most nations don't allow a terrorist to be their leader, and
Yeah.
Magneto responds, "Well, most of them let their leaders become terrorists." So
Yes. Yeah.
excellent line. The Rogue and Magneto dance, like I get, I get visually. Is there no class in you? Like you're a Southerner. You're supposed to be known for your hospitality in your class. This is the most brutal smack in the face. Like it went from being like, oh, I care about you and I'm crying at your knees to like cuckold. Like bam, like just like that, in front of everybody, in front of all of the council, everybody. I just, I love Lenore. This is like nothing against Lenore because Lenore is not Rogue. She's just an
Right.
amazing
Right.
actor who does a phenomenal job doing the voice. But Living in a Happy Nation by Ace of Base is
I
playing. Um,
know.
you know what? I was going to do more in that bit, but I just want to talk about the dance. So,
Okay.
Jordan, what do you got?
It's a gala. There has to be a dance. I was entertained by her elevated take on the Pretty in Pink dress with the, the weird cut off shoulder thing and the ruffles. Again, this is so soap dish for me that I was expecting something to happen. And when she raised her hand, and Magneto behind her raised his hands too. And I had that tingle because I remember the feeling of being touched by someone in that way with the innocence and the yearning, and then someone powerful is his hands are on mine. Okay, I get it. The kiss, of course, I had the moment knowing that Remy is watching. I don't think she was thinking to do that to hurt him. I think she was just thinking about herself, her body, her flesh, her feelings. But after the kiss, she realized, no, there's something more meaningful than just the touch. And someone said it in the chat here that it's the emotional touch that she was really yearning for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alicia, what do you think?
Okay, so I completely agree with everything Jordan said as far as like Rogue as a character and her like experiencing that kind of desire and like touch for the first time in that way.
Yes.
I don't think that she was trying to hurt Remy. I think still she's like, this is what I have to do. This is the face I have to put on. But also Rogue. Before you even left the mansion, you are going to a gala as Magneto's date, and you are gonna wear your Remy first date dress. That is a punch in the gut. First of all, that dress has a lot of meaning. So, and then you're gonna wear it without any protection covering underneath. Okay. But then, that was the moment where, like, watching the two of them, something inside me went, "Oh no, he's too old for her. I don't like this." Like instead of watching it and being like, "Ooh, look at that. That's sensual." I went, "Oh no, no, no. Oh, actually, I hate this." Actually, it was like the moment she took his hand and like interlocked their fingers, I was like, "Oh, something inside me is cringing." And I thought that I wanted this and I no longer do. Please take it off my TV screen. Like it just didn't do it for me. So the moment that she kissed him and then she said like Remy was right, I was like, Feels it too.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I just want to say I'm all about normalizing older men. That's just me. Like,
I don't have a problem with older men. I like it's not that. I was so for the two of them. It was just like once I saw it actually happen, I can't describe to you what changed inside me, but I went, no, no, no.
Alicia, don't you have a cosplay where you are Rogue and your husband is Magneto?
100%. I love it. It's not a problem for me in the Age of Apocalypse. It's not a problem for me in the Savage Land. I am here for it. But for some reason in that moment, I think it's because of the like, you saw her break Remy's heart right before
Mhm.
dress. And it's like, days later we got the Lucas Wernick like art of Remy and Rogue in the same situation. And I was just like, that's the way it was supposed to be. Like, I think I was just like full team Gambit at that point. And so I was just like, no, get your hands off her
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
that Remy girl, you get your hands off, you creepy old bastard.
Yes.
Dylan.
Yeah. um, the dance, it seemed a bit intimate, and
Yes.
in front of everyone, like you mentioned. It makes me. I'm just gonna fully embrace the talking about comics. There was a time in comics where a much older man, Angel, was dating a much younger character, Husk. And at some point in time, they were down in Kentucky in front of her mother, and the two of them, and then they just started having intercourse with each other. And so there was a part of this that made me think of that. And so then, it goes back to your whole like, where's your Southern charm, Rose? Apparently, even the people in Kentucky don't have it either. So talk to.
Oh
It,
no.
it was a bit creepy, and yeah, but I have watched it several more times
Yeah.
since then, and I think it kind of comes off as maybe she did know he was there. Maybe she didn't know it was going to become as intimate as it was, but she also, in her mind, if she is trying to scare him away, like Alicia
Yeah.
said, if he's still there, she still needs to go the one more step further to get you to leave.
Yeah.
So she will
Yeah.
make the dramatic, she's all that entrance floating from the ceiling and then kissing him.
Oh no.
Then went a little bit further, but yeah, to make him go away.
Yeah, if she was trying to get him to go away, she went like scorched earth. Like just like I'm going to leave you a withered husk of yourself. That wasn't like a reference to husk, but yeah, the so here was like the way I feel about it is that as we got introduced to Genosha and we met the council and we're at the gala and the dance is going on, we are like at the high water mark of mutantdom so far in like the original series through here. Like mutants are beginning to be accepted a little bit more. Relations are pretty good. They have their own nation. They're being accepted into the UN. This seems like a perfect time to pull the rug out from under everybody. Um, but right before that happens, Madeline gets hit with a psychic blast, very similar to what happened to Jean. So I'm presuming, at least in my own mind, that this happens simultaneously, that they both get hit with something. She kind of goes outside after blood drips from her nose to get a breath of fresh air, and then shockingly, all of a sudden, just Cable's there, and like frantically running, like shut the music off, shut it down, get everybody out of here. He sees Madeline, and he tries to say, shut it all down. Specifically, he's coming. Now, Madeline, for like the brilliance of the writing here, recognizes who he is. And she had known who Cable was, but now realizing that Cable was her son, that she sent to the future just in the hopes that he would survive, and has that moment of like, oh my God, you made it. His little Tinker Toy says to him, like, bodies fly by one. He says, oh no, not again, and gets sucked. As he's getting sucked away, he says, I'm so sorry, Mom. Then the world collapses, right? Then like shit gets real. I'll just encapsulate that little piece and just like the whole Madeline Cable thing. What did you guys think about that? I'll start with you, Alicia.
I mean, I think that seeing that like moment of her getting hit with the psychic blast was sort of like a pullback to oh, this just happened to Jean, like something's about to go down. And that moment in itself, I think, was heart-wrenching, but also so beautiful. Like just the way that she recognized his eyes and touched his face, and the way his eyes started to fill up with, like, in my mind, when his eyes were changing color, that was like him psychically connecting what she said to him before she sent him through with Kate, with Bishop, saying like, we love you, like him kind of making that connection with her psychically as well. And just like, then him to be able to say like, I'm sorry, mom, and her go away, just like such a heart-wrenching moment, but also such a beautiful moment that I'm so glad made it into the episode. Of course, it opens the door for the conversation of, how many times is Cable going to try to come back to the same moment and maybe a few moments before and reset this action? Like, it throws that into the mix. But just as a moment for realization of the two of them together, I just thought it's just one of the millions of like beautifully real moments in the show. The writing is just stunning.
Mm-hmm. Dylan, how about you?
I am a huge Maddie fan, so to see even it being a millisecond of like her happiness, I was like, this is amazing. I'm so glad we didn't wait for you to come back in season 2 or season 3 to see this moment of her realizing that he survived. Yeah, loved it.
Jordan?
I didn't know much about that storyline, but at that moment, the sadness that only seeing someone you love for a brief second was tragic, and I felt like something was about to happen because he kind of said it, and then something bad, like tragic, happened.
Yeah.
So it's that mix of emotion. It's that roller coaster of emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I wanted to get that out of the way because like the next bit we have is like the big end piece that was like
Ever.
has been the talk of everything forever and will be forever. So after that, this is where we get the attack on Genosha. The Wild Sentinels, or as Gambit referred to him, the Godzilla Sentinel, which I'm going to always refer to it as because that's just a great reference. Again, call back to the Grant Morrison run of All New X-Men. I will not get started on that because I want this to be a positive live. So I'm not going to go on my Grant Morrison tirade, but is basically just that we have like the big boom, and we sort of like see this in a really cool like POV from like Rogue's perspective of like tumbling and rubble, and like she comes to after what we presume has been a little bit of time. So does Magneto, Gambit, like so many. We're trying to get the Morlocks out of there. They're trapped. Uh, you know, Magneto I think well, first of all, we have like the great shot of like Rogue and Gambit like going into battle together, which needs to live on like X-Men memory forever because it was fantastic. Magneto goes like full Omega on this thing. He goes completely nuts. We have the thing where he is the Godzilla Sentinel Omega level threat to Magneto begins pouring it on him. He's doing everything he can to hold this back. Leech is clinging to him like a child, which is like heartbreaking. Rogue tries to get in the way. Magneto stops it, kind of like shields them. And then, the moment where I think as Magneto realizes he's not going to be able to hold this any longer. And he looks down at Leech and in German says, "Don't be afraid." And then, boom. I'll pack it all in together. Rogue loses it. Like she completely, like you can see her eyes are just like infuriated, hurt, everything. She goes to go after it with everything she's got. Gambit charges his motorcycle. Another guy saving her ass from doing something heroic. And Gambit says, you know what? I'm going to deal with this whole thing myself. I'm just going to go right at this thing, and I'm going to go toe to toe with this thing. He gets impaled through the side. And the Godzilla Sentinel holds it up in front of his eyes and, says, threat defeated. Gambit proceeds to charge the Godzilla Sentinel. Doesn't even have a hand on it. Does it with his liver. Just starts charging this thing, and we get big kaboom. Um, and then after that, we get the scene with the crater with Rogue holding Gambit. Um, and yeah, I know there's like so much to say in all this, but we'll get into it. How about Jordan? What did you think?
Yeah, so the light moment there for me was in the tunnels where Tommy, the Morlock, had one line where she says the X-Men are no friends to the Morlock. And I posted about it on my page that even in the LGBT community where the mutants, we still don't fully accept other mutants in our community. And that's what came to my mind when she said that is even in the world of mutants, she feels like an outcast, that her community is going to betray her. But we saw that, the X-Men did try to save them. And then on the very, very personal level, and this is a trigger moment for some people. I lost my husband in 2017, and he died while he was sleeping next to me, and I woke up and I felt him and he was not breathing anymore. That's what I felt in that line when Rogue said, I can't feel him. The tragedy of losing someone is hard to let go of. And I think that's why this episode resonated with so many people, because Bo DeMaio wrote about it a little bit, that we collectively has witnessed so much death that it doesn't feel real anymore. And so when we see it again in something that we love so much, it hits us in a different level. So for the viewers who feel really who are still grieving about it, we know there's people still grieving about it. Please reach out to someone. There's people to speak with, specialists, therapists, counselors. I'll give Cami Slice a plug. She is a licensed therapist. She will be hosting some live for people who were really affected by this episode, because it reflects real life. And I think that's what makes it an amazing writing.
Wow, Alicia, your thoughts?
Oh, there's so much that happens in such a condensed moment that every single time I've watched the episode 3 times, and I could watch it 800 more, because it's so real, but there's so much to take in and to process that you don't even process all of it at once. And I think that, one of the things that I find to be the most powerful of the ending is the moment when the explosion happens, the way that they drop out all like background music and anything that's like cinematic, and it just becomes like the fear and the screaming and the chaos, and that's the sound that you hear. It is such a real shock, and I think they do such a beautiful job of trying to say like this is this is a moment, like people do this. And I know that in some of the stuff that Bo had shared, he talked a lot about like gun violence and pulse, and I just feel like when I read that, it really hit me, and it really made me go back and look at the episode for so much of what it is, in that like there is a problem in our country with people just deciding that they don't like a group of people, and so they go and they just decide they can destroy them. And seeing that happen is, Justin made a comment when we watched it, like about kids watching it, and I thought about it. I've been thinking about that a lot, and I was like, you know what though, children do like active shooter drills in their schools all the time, and so this type of thing is not foreign or shocking to the children watching which is a whole nother conversation, but just the realness of what happened and the way that there was the chaos and the people jumping in to save each other, the way Nightcrawler, pulls Rogue and who's she with at that moment? Magneto. Pulls Rogue and Magneto away, and then like she can't even go to him because she's not wearing anything on her hands, and like paralyzed with what to do. And then Remby shows up. There's just so much of that, like that there, and Magneto, like the moment where he starts having flashes of like what's happening, but plus also like his history and his backstory, and there's like Holocaust scenes mixed in with like him making those parallels, and just you're seeing so much, there's so much realness and rawness packed into it that it's such a masterfully done thing. And you see like everybody doesn't care about their own self in that moment because their emotions are just pushing them forward. Like Rogue, like Magneto sheltering Rogue and Gambit is because he's like, I just have to do something for you because I have to be here for Leech right now. And then the way that she blasts through and she just goes for the Sentinel, and then the way that Gambit goes for the Sentinel, and like he's like, I'm going to throw a motorcycle at you because there's nothing else to do right here in this moment. Like there's so much desperation in it, and it's just it's so raw, it's so beautiful, but it's also so important because I feel like it's easy for us to look to media as a way to escape our reality, but it's really important for us to see our reality put back in our faces in a way that, like a lot of people were very affected by this episode, and there's a lot of conversation about this being like the greatest episode of TV ever, like not even animation or anything like that, that there's just so much here that it's just such an important, powerful thing. And then Gambit, if that's not, someone said this in the comments, if that's not an Omega level move, like I don't know what is. Like if Gambit had to die, dying in that way was the most epic thing ever. The moment that you see like the charge start to take place and like all the intricacies of the Sentinel charging up, and you know what's about to happen, you're like cheering and cringing at the same time because you're like, yeah, take that son of a gun down, but at the same time, no, Gambit, don't do it because we know what this means for you. And then I cannot watch the episode without crying. It's like I can get through it. I'll be like, I'm strong, I'm strong. And then Lenore says, I can't feel you. And I just, that's it. I'm done. It's so real. It's just, that's it. That's all I can say is it's so real. It's not, but it is. And it's just, it's beautiful. It's horrifically beautiful.
Yeah. Dylan?
How am I supposed to follow both of them with everything that they just said? But
You got it.
I do want to highlight again one more thing that Jordan said, because it's something that I've actually had to deal with since X-Men 97 has started with my X-Men Facebook groups. And that is when it comes to the LGBTQ community, trans people and non-binary people, which is under the umbrella of trans, are some of the most fragile because no one protects them, not even the other letters in the alphabet. I've had to deal with kicking people out of groups who are L, G, and B because they think horribly of the T. So Tommy's point of view is something that should always be thought of, because even in our own community, we're not safe. But for me, watching the episode, knowing comics, I knew Genosha never means anything good. But yes, with everything that happened in the past few years, it very much makes you think of 9/11, makes you think of Pulse, makes you think of black churches that just get shot up by good white men. That you can't even have your own safe space. Even when you make your own safe space, they still come for you. It's horrible. But yeah, there's so much happening because like we just went through like 4 episodes of dealing with this love triangle of Magneto, Gambit, and Rogue. But then like when shit hits the fan, like Magneto is like, Rogue, you and Gambit are like my warriors. Go and handle everything. Like he doesn't care that she's with her ex, and
Right.
Gambit doesn't care that she just broke up with him. And yeah, there's so much. And Lenore is her voice is just so heartbreaking there at the end, and just I'm sure most X-Men 97 fans know this already because they've heard her mention it in several different places, but when she was recording this episode years ago, she had just lost her niece, and so she was using that, channeling that, and it's just like, oh my god.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I thought it was beautiful the way Bo DeMeo had put this on his Instagram and kind of broken his social media silence, and sort of like talking about this episode and all these episodes leading up to this like being his first big pitch to Fox. And through so many of us who were children who grew up with the animated series, and even though life was not simpler then, we viewed it that way because we were young. There was good and evil in the world, and it was that black and white. And then we were in this like moment, depending upon like what age you were at, when 9/11 happened. And I know me personally, and I know so many people felt this way. Like 9/11 was surreal. Like it was so bad. I remember watching on TV, like not even be able to wrap my brain around what was happening. Like it was so bad that you're literally like live on TV watching like thousands of people die, and you're powerless. You can't do anything about it. You're not Superman. You can't fly to New York and put a stop to it.
Yeah.
And I feel like everything in the series that led up to that point was setting that up, beautifully done. Dylan, on your podcast, Steph had mentioned that it was very much Red Wedding-esque from Game of Thrones, and Sean Gack had said the same thing to me, that it was one of those episodes that left you, just jaw on the floor, breathless when it ended. And as a side note, I want to give all the credit in the world to everybody, every fucking human being who worked on this episode, because to have that vision and get it dialed in that perfectly. Sean said it to me. He's like, you get one shot at an episode like this, and if you screw it up,
Yeah.
you don't hit your mark. And they nailed it. It was brutal, but it was beautiful at the same time. And yes, like Lenore, to think, and I don't mean to trivialize it in any way, shape, or form, but it's like let's be honest, you're talking about a cartoon. And yet when they're able to, from a cartoon, elicit that emotional reaction from an audience. I mean, because earlier Rogue says to Gambit, your heart beats for me, but I can't feel it. And then as she's holding him, she's crying, saying, I can't feel you. And of course, in the middle of that is when it has to cut to black, and you just hear no music, no sound effects, nothing. Literally just raw Lenore emotion. Um, give her, give her an Emmy, give her an Oscar, give
Yes.
her a Tony, give her a
Oh,
Dundee, give them all.
every
Just
single one.
because like, everyone that exists anywhere, I don't care. Just give her all the awards, because it truly was something powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And shout out to Matthew and AJ as well. This whole
Yes.
I mean, yes, there's other characters and whatever,
Yeah.
but I mean, yes, Lenore up there
Yeah.
on top, but for her to get there, Matthew and AJ, yeah, and the art people. I don't know all the people titles,
Yeah.
but like you gave us the emotion on animated characters, and we're crying animated characters having feelings and emotions on their face. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like literally every, like you were saying, Cringe, every single aspect of it was so well done. Like the sound, the colors of the animation style, the like just the shift that happened in that last section of the episode is just like every little detail is a part in what makes it so powerful.
The clear direction of the whole episode,
Yeah.
and knowing that this is from episode 1, that this is a build up to even more, the vision that everybody bought into the vision to make this show happen. So the whole production team, everyone, just thank you. Amazing. Thank you. Thank you for that.
And so
Yeah.
often, like, something like this would be a season finale, and then we would come back and the characters would have had their time to process, and we'd be seeing like a little bit of the aftermath, but it'd be like 3 months later or something when the show came back. And doing something like this in the middle of the season is really a way to say that, like, the aftermath of this story is also really important. Like, what we do after this happens matters. And so we're not just going to put this as your season finale and not experience how we move forward from this together. And I think that that's what's really, like, beautiful about how it's placed in the season, is that they're not just gonna, like, come to in the next episode and, like, this doesn't matter. Like, this, figuring out how we move forward from here on all fronts, human mutant relations, like the characters healing, like all of that is going to be part of what we get to process together as we move forward. And I think that's very, very smart on their end.
Yeah.
The redemption arc, I'm excited for it, and I'm hoping that Callisto didn't die, even though they showed her just laying there at one point. And hopefully in the next episode she has a line that she says something.
In terms of the comics, like, can I just get Emma out of the rubble in diamond form next episode? Maybe.
I was wondering about that too.
Be really excited if that happened.
I want to say one more deep thing, and I don't think it's necessarily like the vision of the creators, because we've, for the most part, learned a lot of what their vision is. But for me, as an X-Men animated series fan, there's a part of me that is like, I feel like these first few episodes is them being like, okay, all of you millennials, you went 9/11, you went through all of that. We're gonna make all of that happen again. And then as your, like, therapists and as your parents and as your whatever, we're going to help you move on, because you've been with us for 27 years and clearly you didn't learn anything from us. So we're going to and then tell you how to be adults again. So that's how I'm viewing this entire series, and I love it.
Yeah, maybe that's why I'm so irritated, because as a Gen Xer, I spent so many years suppressing all that crap. I don't want it brought back up again. It's like cargo stored on a ship. Don't open those.
Sorry.
That's in there for a reason. I don't need to explore it.
They're like, we're going to open up the wounds that you've gotten for the past 27 years, and we're going to better.
No, I'm fine. Leave me alone. I swear. Yeah, yeah, and getting into the lighter side, yeah, we've got a lot. Like, if you thought characters were emotionally confused prior to this episode, I'm putting $5 down that Rogue kisses Logan next episode, because she's just so confused. She's like, "Come here, Logan." He's like, "Stop it, leave me alone." And now they're, Bo had said this episode was the tip of the spear. So now we know to bring tissues. Especially because right now, next episode is what, Life and Death Part 2? Bro.
Yeah.
Bro.
I mean, we've already been crying over Storm for like 3 episodes prior.
Right.
And there's episode, she was only in it for like 9 minutes. Now we're going to have a whole episode. And it's like, okay, well, just continue crying. Because it's Allison and every other scene that you've already watched her in, you've already cried. So now we're going to cry for 33 minutes more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we'll find it. We'll get through it together. I feel like they're tearing us down so they can build us back up, and just like you said, make us better people.
Hey, that's a positive take on it.
Yeah.
From scratch, you guys didn't do anything the past 27 years. Break down the wall. Going to build it back up.
Yeah. Half of you are clearly still miserable. You didn't pay enough attention. You were too obsessed with claws and tight underwear. There's a deeper meaning behind this, guys. Yeah. So we're about closing into the end on this bad boy. Anybody who's out there watching this or will watch it in the future, once again, I want to say, Uncanny Experience. Get your tickets. All 4 of us will be there. Let's hang out. Let's have fun. Oh, there it is. There it is. Oh, I'm so excited.
Ready for this, and this I don't
This is
go.
just here on a regular basis. Just not a prop.
Yeah, and those listening, several of the voice actors from X-Men the Animated Series and, of course, now X-Men 97 will be there. VIP tickets, are there still some left?
There's single digits.
Scant. Scant.
Get them on
Yeah,
Yes.
again.
There are less VIP tickets left than Rogue has dress left. So get them if you can. Was that one that odd? Was that, or is that too dad joke for you? He doesn't like my dad jokes, but
That joke.
okay, that one. Okay, they don't all hit. But we're gonna get out of here, folks. Thank you, everybody. Jordan, Dylan, Alicia, thank you so much for doing this, being part of my, or I guess your guys' group therapy. I'm okay because I just bury it down deep. But once again, thank you everybody for watching. I'll go around the horn one last time. Jordan, X-Men 101 podcast. Dylan, House of X podcast, and To Me My X-Men podcast, and Alicia, the ex-wife podcast. Go check them out. I listened to all three of them. They are fantastic. And we will talk to all of you another time.
Bye, all.
Goodbye.